Well, first of all, let me thank you for your attention, and especially the Association of Insurance Companies for inviting us to contribute to this topic. I would apologize for my voice. No problems with the speakers, but I think I still managed to get some interesting facts out of the modeling over to you. Not everybody in the audience might be familiar when we talk about catastrophe modeling, what's behind it. A few basic words about the approach, what models try to do. They try simply to convert risk, hazard into potential possible loss amounts. How do they do it? They simply take risk credentials, location, type of the risk, construction features. They combine it with the map footprint of individual cat losses, severity, location, and they further combine it with then damage functions. This allows simply to calculate the loss. In this example, simply saying an earthquake with a magnitude of 8 on the scale is expected to produce a loss of about 50% to this specific risk, from which you can easily calculate sum insured 1 million times 50% ratio. So you have a 500,000 loss. Applying insurance policy conditions, in this case a 2% deductible, gives an insured loss of 480,000. And this they do simply with all losses in a given portfolio and with all losses which are part of the model. And by this you end up in an exceedance probability function, which then can tell you what kind of a loss, what kind of amount of loss you're expecting for a loss given, let's say, with the possibility to appear every 200 years in this case. And to simply put it in much easier words, you can also say it's not different to somebody wanting to cross a road, a very busy road, without giving attention to the traffic. What in this case our models do, they simply try to give you more security by using your traffic light, which gives certainty but still not any guarantee. You should still apply other aspects of the loss as well. Good. Let me try to give some key figures, quantifications to start with. As already mentioned, at the end of 2017, we were talking about a stock of around about 6.5 million dwellings. And the estimated replacement cost for this portfolio was about 560 billion euro. Now, applying the available models, these gave a range of 6.2 to 8.5 billion euros for a loss, which, as a standard approach, the 1 in 200 years probability, which, to just put it into a different context, would simply equate to about 3.5 to 4.5% of the Greek GDP. And please bear in mind that we are just talking about dwellings. We are not talking about contents, we are not talking about commercial or industrial risks, business interruption, and no infrastructural losses. And what has already been mentioned by Mr. Marzu, and this is, I think, the key finding of it, we're talking about just 16% of these potential, or of these risks, of this potential loss, currently being insured. And I leave it up to your imagination what this could cause to any society or country everywhere in the world. You might think that the figure of 6.2, 8.5 billion sounds quite theoretical. Some of you still might remember the 1999 Athens loss. And this at the same, or applied to the same portfolio of risks. These days is estimated to be 2.1 to 2.5 billion according to the various models. And bear in mind that the insured loss at 1999 was about 130 to 150 million euros. But this then including commercial and industrial risk. The economic loss of this event was said to be around 3 billion of losses. And now try to transfer it into something more severe. Well, how did we get to this data? The Hellenic Statistical Office holds available the data of the 2011 census, which simply give very detailed information about the location of risks, about the construction age, and the like. It's broken down per region, regional districts, and even down to the level of municipalities. The Elstat also provides data to follow up until the end of 17 by, let's say, further information about new built dwellings. And the slide simply shows that since 2011 there's an increase in the number of dwellings by 1.4, and in the replace or the surface of the dwellings even by 2.1%. So some further characteristics of the analyzed portfolio. We are talking, let's say, about countrywide split, although it has to be said that 33% of the risks are located in Attiki, with another 17% of the risks being in Macedonian regions, which simply could be transferred into Athens and Thessaloniki as the main exposures. On a countrywide basis, the average surface area is about 86 square meters, and the variance amongst the various regions is relatively narrow, between 78 and 92 square meters. So there's not a lot of variance irrespective of the regions. And the majority, let's say round about 70% of the dwellings has a size of up to 100 square meters, which we believe is, let's say, quite a good parameter. Furthermore, if we go by type of the dwellings, you'll see that 45% refers to apartments, which, and this doesn't come as a surprise, is to be found mostly in rural areas or urban areas. Detached houses and double family houses make up most of the rest. Across the country, around about 35% of the dwellings are not permanently used. And again, it's not that much of a surprise that the highest rate of vacant dwellings is to be found on the beautiful areas on the Ionian, Aegean, and islands, and here down on Peloponnese. There are various reasons why these are vacant. As I mentioned, on the islands, the main reason is that most of the houses are used for vacation or as secondary houses. And let's say the rest of the reasons, like being out for rent or for sale, surprisingly don't make that much of a difference if you go region by region. Saying, let's say, more risk-related aspects, construction, and again, the most applied construction type, concrete, is to be found again in the cities, whereas in the rural areas it's more the bricks and stone type of buildings which we find. Just one comment about this entire slide. This is not, or doesn't have as a basis the number of dwellings or the dwellings themselves. It's rather the buildings which create these figures. So in the middle pie, and this is where it raised some surprises. Although you expect apartments to be represented or represent a much larger part, it's simply due to the fact that we are talking about 6.3 million dwellings in 4.1 million buildings. So we have a lot of apartments in high-rise buildings, but these reflect only on a countrywide basis the 8% of the stock. By age, most of the buildings were built after the implementation of the first seismic or construction code, which was established in 1959. So we have already quite a good stock with credible construction features. So we have used for the exercise 3 of the available vendor models. It has been discussed what kind of base replacement cost should be taken. We have decided that we will use about 1,000 euros per square meter. It has been the peril of earthquake, ground shaking as the base peril. Construction features, as I said, height, age, have been used as well, modeling with or without, let's say, insured deductible. What does it give as a figure? As I said, the main parameter or most common range being used is the 1 in 200 years type of event, and without any kind of deductible or other features being built in. This gives, depending on the model, a range of 9.3 to 9.7. The models vary a bit, as you can see. On the right-hand side, it gives, let's say, the workout of the individual models, and you can see there are certain discrepancies, and even if you view the figures, you'll see that especially Model B has a different approach, and the main reason for the difference also in the estimated loss amount is simply in this model gives less credibility to the Attiki region, for which we have, or in which we have mainly 33% of the entire portfolio. Moving on to the picture, which reflects the common practice currently in the Greek market, i.e. applying 2% insured deductible, gives this range as I already referred to before. You still might think that this is quite a theoretic approach. Again, I would like to give it a different context. If you would apply IOPA's standard model, and the CAD module within that would simply suggest that the 1 in 200 would end up at a 10.1 billion loss. So the models, I think, do give some kind of credible guidance to probable losses in the market. Once again, just trying to give kind of more realistic view in it. On all the models, historic loss experience is the base for the calculation. So Greece, as a market, fortunately has, unfortunately I have to say, one of the longest and broadest loss experience being available. The models apply small losses, which might even occur on an annual basis, which sometimes are not being recognized. And on the table below you see what the last events experienced in Greece would probably stand for at the portfolio we have analyzed. Saying this, the loss tables also consider very severe events for which sometimes no historical analog is available. So they simply assume the loss characteristics, and this is what we have given as an example here. If we would, for instance, apply 6.6 earthquake in Gulf of Corinth, Eastern Athens, this would equate to really the 8.4 billion loss. And once reiterated, this is just on the dwellings stock. So no commercial, no industrial, no infrastructure or economic loss. Same would be if we use one specific event available or modeled, which triggers Saloniki, 7.5 earthquake in the region, and it would come to the same level of loss. One thing, and I think this is what we will see also as a comment on the following discussions, we currently have a comparatively low penetration here in the Greek market. What we've tried to simply estimate is also what it would mean if this would consequently be increased up to the full insured. So this is really in a very short view what the modeling allows for. I can only suggest for the ones who are interested to really use Elstat as a source, as it really gives very, very detailed insight into the stock and helps especially people in our industry to get a better understanding of their portfolio and the risks.